As a small business owner, have you ever felt overwhelmed by the pressure of choosing the right hire or leading a team? Or have you ever found yourself tolerating a bad hire because you fear trying and failing again as you repeat the hiring process? If so, you're not alone, and you are in the right place. Welcome to the Growing Your Team podcast. The Growing Your Team podcast teaches business owners like you to expand your unique business by teaching you to master the hiring and team management process. Hiring and managing a team does not have to be a challenge. You just have to learn to do it right. And the Growing Your Team podcast teaches you how to become a confident leader who hires right every single time. Now, let's jump into the show where each episode you will learn tips on how to identify what type of help you need on your team, how to source amazing candidates, how to conduct interviews that lead you to your ideal team member, how to onboard successfully, and how to lead every person in your business so you have a team of rock stars who you are happy to pay every single paycheck. So let's jump in and teach you how to hire like a pro. Hello, Jamie Van Kuyk here, and welcome back to the Growing Your Team podcast. Today, I have on guest Ciara Stockeland. Ciara is a speaker, author, 4-time Ironman and Fractional CFO for inventory-based businesses. Ciara has owned and operated a business since her early teens. As a serial entrepreneur, her business mindset and tenacity led her to opening her first store in 2006, which she then franchised. Most recently, Ciara has launched the Inventory Genius, a consultant program for inventory-based business owners, and has published the book Inventory Genius and Profit Genius, both which give practical steps for creating more profitability in inventory-based businesses. In today's conversation, Ciara and I are talking about profitability in your business. But this conversation is for anyone, not just for the people who have inventory-based businesses. And we're talking about how you can really leverage your team to have those profitable businesses. Ciara gets honest about the successes and challenges she has had over her roughly 20-year entrepreneurship experience since opening her first store in 2006 to show us the mistakes that we can make along the way and also how we can learn from those mistakes and be better and not let mistakes stop us from doing what is needed next in our business. So let's jump into the conversation and learn from everything Ciara has to offer. Hi, Ciara. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Growing Your Team podcast.
I am really excited about this conversation. It's not often that I get to talk about something other than just money. So I'm really excited to talk about people today.
Yes. Yeah. People and money, it's such that great intersection and important intersection when it comes to running a successful business. But before we get into all that today, can you take some time and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yes, for sure. So I'm a third generation entrepreneur born and raised in Fargo, North Dakota. I live in Nashville now, but I started my first retail business in Fargo, downtown Fargo in 2006. It was a high-end maternity baby store. And then 6 months later, I opened a second retail concept, which was an outlet store. Ended up combining those two concepts in 2010 and franchised it. So we had a designer outlet boutique. So think like TJ Maxx in a beautiful little boutique environment. And I built that and franchised it, grew it over the next decade. I had a massive team of 12 people. I had the corner office, a beautiful warehouse. And then with franchisees, that's another whole group of people that you're leading and growing, right? These are entrepreneurs who wanted to start their own business and they're buying into your concept. So I've been around the people point of business and a leadership in that for a long time. I ended up selling my brand to one of my franchisees in 2017 and then built and grew another concept. It was a subscription box for boutique owners. So now I was working B2B. So had a very small team on that, but built it and grew it, sold it within 18 months. And through that, started meeting product-based business owners all over the country, retailers, wholesalers, distributors, salons, anyone that sold inventory, and they were all asking questions about money. How do I make more money? How do I keep more money? How much inventory should I have? My P&L says I'm making money, but I have no cash in the bank account. These common questions, and I knew how to help. And so I launched Inventory Genius about 5 years ago, and I work with product-based business owners specifically on keeping more of their cash, creating more profitability. A lot of times we're getting out of debt, we're solving really heavy financial problems, and I get to help them like build more profitability in their business and scale and grow.
Wonderful. Oh, I have so many questions I want to ask about this. But one, I am so excited for this conversation, mostly because I feel like a lot of the people we bring on the show, they really focus on service-based, businesses. And I know we have a whole bunch of people that listen to the show that are also product-based. So I'm just so
Yeah.
excited to get a lot of the knowledge for the product-based businesses out there. But I know there's going to be a lot that you share that apply to service-based businesses as well. Just so like when we
Yes.
have the service-based experts that it can apply to product-based businesses as well. So, just a random question based on all that. You've grown two businesses that you've sold. When you were going through those businesses, or even like the second one, because you said you built it and sold it within 18 months, was that your intention to sell it when you started it? Or was it just one of those things you're like, I'm going to do this, and you're like, wait, now I want to do something else. Let me get rid of that.
Yeah, so the retail business, my intention with that was to grow it. I think I had published, I need to find the article, but I think I had said by 2025, which on 100 stores. So I wanted my brand to be a 100 store franchise chain by the year 2025. That business I wanted to grow and just create wealth from it and like build it and be a leader in the retail franchise space. We ended up having a coup, if you will, amongst many of the franchisees. They left the system, broke their franchise agreements. It was a pretty ugly time. And so that was not planned. I found that within a short period of time, everything I had built and dreamed, everything that was attached to our home and, our family's livelihood was basically like taken away. We won all of our lawsuits, but only the attorneys win. It's very expensive.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, we ended up losing everything, including our home, while several of them kept their stores. And so I had a couple franchisees who loved the brand. They were great people. And one of them said, can I just buy the brand from you? I'd like to continue this on. And I'm like, absolutely, it is yours. And so she's still running the store to this day. She's opened up a second location. So with that, my plans did not go according to my plan, right? But that really caused me to sit back and think, okay, yes, some things were out of my control. Sometimes bad people do bad things and you can't control that, but what part of that story did I play, right? What could I have done different, that maybe would have taken me down a different path? And the main thing that I saw in that observation was that I had been growing by focusing on top line revenue instead of profitability. So I was always making decisions on how can I grow this bigger? How can I make more money? How can I be a 7-figure business? The things that we hear all the time, instead of, will this be a profitable decision? Can I pay myself? Which I know we're going to talk about, because while I had that team of 12, I was working for free. So,
Mhm.
so I wasn't growing it with the right foundation. And so when I had the opportunity to sell that brand to one of my franchisees and then say, okay, I'm going to solve another problem because I love problem solving. There needs to be a connection between retailers and wholesalers. Let me do it with a subscription box. With that business, I grew it with the end in mind. I wanted to sell it. So I wanted to solve a problem, build it, and sell it. And I did it much differently. I paid myself from day one. I was very smart with the people that I hired, did a lot of contractor hires instead of W-2s, because I think a lot of times we think we need huge teams, but really it's a vanity metric for us. And so I said, how can I do this really smart with people instead of just like, I want a team of 12 people and then I want to work for free. And so I did it really differently and grew it with the end in mind. And that was a much different experience. And that's what I love to bring to my clients. Like, I've had the corner office in the $7 million business, and I've also had a business that didn't gross near that much, but paid me so much more. Which would you
Mhm.
rather have?
Right.
Yeah. And so I've just done it really differently and helped people see that now and do that differently as well.
Yeah. Well, I think you bring up like so many, great things in there. It's like you can have that business that has all those vanity metrics and it's chaos and you hate it and it's not
Yes,
paying you well and it's like you probably think at times like what am I doing this for?
I
Like
did. I felt
why?
so
Like
trapped in
and
it.
and
Yeah,
then when you run businesses the right way, you can have more success by having a smaller business that you're feeling more successful, even though, you said like a $7 million business, which I don't know like how big the other one was, but you think you said it was smaller. And it was just like you can have more success and have your business make less money because you're doing things right and you're making the right decisions and you're building the right business for you. It's like, one of the things like we talk about all the time on this podcast is you're in control of what success looks like for you. It doesn't need to
yes.
be what it looks like for someone else. It doesn't need to be what someone else defines success on paper. So I love that. um, Obviously you mentioned working for free and we're going to get into that. I definitely want to get into that, but before we do, I have another question about that. So when you went down the story of starting these franchises and then things didn't go well and you said there were lawsuits and like all this stuff, and when you first shared your story, you were talking about, okay, you had franchises, which was just leading people kind of in a different capacity, because even though like the franchise owners. So you had this business idea that you grew, it's your baby. You
Yep.
trusted it by having other people get involved in it, and then things didn't go well. So when you were starting that other second business, and even though you did contractors versus employees at times, you still had to trust people in everything. So talk about if you had this, what hesitations were out there? What mind blocks did you have and what did you have to work through so that way you can say, I'm doing things right this time. These things are going to be different, but I still need people in order to be successful.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think anyone's ever asked me. I've been on a lot of podcasts. No one's asked me that, and it's a really good question. And it's a real question because we see the highlight reel of everyone, right? So people see what I'm doing now and that I've sold businesses and they're like, oh my goodness, there's been so many bad mistakes, so many tears, so much try. I mean, I lost my home at one point,
Mhm.
right? So this is a story of a massive roller coaster up and down. But I think the people piece, I've always been a very optimistic, trusting person, which was part of the issue with the first go round because I trusted without listening to what people were telling me about themselves. I remember at one point we were interviewing a prospective franchisee and our family went out to dinner with their family and I had two little kids at the time. And when we left, my daughter said to me, I don't think you should give that lady a store. That's the best way. She didn't understand selling a franchise. I don't think you should give that lady a store. What are you talking about? I just don't like her. I don't think you should give her a store. And I'm like, okay, you're 6 years old. And that's just, okay, thank you. Well, in hindsight, this was one of the issues, right? This was one of the problem people. But I would see things, and because my judgment was clouded by A, I want to grow, and so we'll just figure it out. And B, I know they're telling me about their character and what they're doing and saying before I make the sale, but I need money. I want to sell and they'll figure it out. Why would they be? Like, why wouldn't they do, you know? And I think we do this as leaders, especially entrepreneurs. We can be very optimistic, forward thinking people. And we might do this in an interview. I know I used to be so bad at interviews because I'd sit down, I'd ask them the questions and tell them what I wanted them to say back to me, right? Like, so what
Right.
would you do in this situation? You'd probably do this, right? Well, of course someone's going to say absolutely, you know, instead of listening to like what they're telling me about their character and themselves. And so the second time around when I said, okay, I'm going to build something again, I can't do it alone. I'm going to be honest. Like at first I was like, stay away from me. I don't want people. They're all out to screw me. Like I'll help you for 2 minutes and I'm in and out. But then I just realized like I'm going to have to trust people because we have to have people to help us grow. Again, what could I have done differently? What did I do wrong? And how can I work to improve that? And so for me, it was a self awareness of, okay, Ciara, here's where your zone of genius is. First, you're going to lean more into that and stop believing this lie that we have to do everything and wear a million hats. We hear that all the time. No, if you do that forever, you can't grow. And so where you really, where's your zone of genius, Ciara? And then when you talk to people and you bring people on the team, hold them accountable right away, which I did not do before. Hold them accountable, set expectations, inspect what you expect, have hard conversations. And if people are telling you who they are with their actions, believe them. You can't make someone somebody that they're not. And so it took a while to build that trust and started, letting go and finding people, and just a way different team this time around. Like and I have a really large team now with my business, and it's so different. It's so different.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You brought up so many great things there, Sarah, like, kind of speaking my language of, what it takes to actually to have a good hire. The first thing, that you brought up is like, you're telling people what you wanted to hear in the interview. And I have
Yeah.
to train people on that all the time. It's ask the question and then zip your lips. And it's
Yes.
such human nature to want to, one, fill the silence. So if the candidate doesn't start talking right away, you want to make them feel comfortable. So you keep talking. And two, I know a lot of people I work with, we're just people focused people. Like we want to help people. Our businesses a lot of times are around helping people. And because of that nature of us, we're like, how do I help the person that's here? Let me make this easier for them. And we don't realize that when we make it easier for them, we make it harder on ourselves. With a
Yeah.
lot of things, that's true. And so I love that you had to learn that. The other thing that I think is like super important is while it might not be that people came in or people had these team members that come in and essentially kind of made it so they had to get rid of their business and lose their home and things like that, but sometimes people will go and they'll hire wrong the first time or sometimes the
Yeah.
first 8 times, as I heard a business owner say, and then that stops them from doing it again because you have all those fears. And I love that you had to convince yourself to get over that, to say I need people in order to be successful, and just being kind of really open and honest that sometimes we need to recognize that we are the reason why things didn't go right with our teams before. And it's not that
Yeah.
we're bad people. It's sometimes we just didn't know what to do yet. And we had to learn how to interview well and how to select the right people. I also love the fact that, when you said like your daughter, was in tune that no, 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 let's not hire this person. But you were probably in the mindset, as you kind of said, like so many people are, I want to grow. I need people to do it. Why not? This person seems
Yeah.
good enough. And you
Yeah.
weren't really listening to what they were telling you. And that's one thing, like when we work with a lot of clients and we kind of, I would say like, I was actually talking to someone about this the other day. Like my favorite part of recruiting is playing detective work. And sometimes in answers and interviews, people will tell you, oh, I'm fantastic at this. But then as you listen to their answers throughout the entire interview, you're really learning, well, they tell me I'm fantastic at this because why wouldn't they say that they're
Yeah.
fantastic at that? But none of their answers actually support them being good at that. So it's like, how do you listen to them as a whole to really determine if they are the right person or not?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really important. It's like you said, asking the questions and listening to the answers, not listening with your next question in mind, but like
Mhm.
truly listening and just letting that time sit, that ruminate, those words sit there. But I think a big part of it too is two other things. You have to be willing to have tough conversations, and you have to be intuitive and like self-aware, because business
Mhm.
owners that are not self-aware run into a lot of problems, including
Oh, yes.
financial problems, right? If it's always everybody else's fault, I'm amazing, I'm talking over everyone, I'm leading, I'm growing, I'm crazy. Entrepreneurs, and myself included, I can think of a new concept every day, honestly, like a new business every day, right? I can pivot really quick. And that's part of my superpower. But if I don't learn to say that can also be my Achilles, I'm never going to grow well. I'm always going to keep starting, failing, roller coaster living. But I have to be willing to say, like, okay, that can be good, but that could also hurt me. And how can I tamper it? How can I bring people in that I'll listen to, right? And say, okay, maybe, so and so Leah on the team, for instance, if she can be my integrator and I can be the visionary, I need to listen to her when she says, Ciara, slow down one idea at a time. So it's that self-awareness. I think that's really important. And then when there are people problems, you have to deal with them right away. You're going to deal with it and it's going to cost you anyway. So you might as well just eat the frog and get it over with, and learn to have that hard conversation, because that when we put that off, it's so costly,
Yes.
monetarily, mental wise, everything.
Yes. Yeah. And I love that you shared those two things because I think they go really hand in hand, that self-awareness and addressing issues head on. And because sometimes we have to recognize that the issues that we're having is because of us. And so you mentioned
Yeah.
earlier, like setting expectations and communicating those expectations sometimes we need to realize that we didn't set expectations properly. And
Yeah.
that's okay. Like I tell people all the time, I'm like, you will forget to tell your team members stuff because for you it's second nature.
Yeah.
And we can't hold them accountable for things that they don't know, but we still have to reset those expectations. So
Yeah.
that's a different conversation. And sometimes it's being open and honest. Hey, I forgot to tell you this. So this is on me that you didn't do it. But I need to make sure that you do this moving forward. So this
Yeah.
was wrong, but it was wrong because I forgot to tell you. So now let's tell you the right way. So now you know, so that way it can be right in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. I want to transition more kind of into that intersection between finance and team. So let's just dive right into it. It's something you brought up, I know, before we started recording and then briefly here. And it's kind of like that concept of working for free. And we don't
Yeah.
want to be doing that in our business. So let's talk about that, especially that thing of sometimes we are paying other people, but we're working for free.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is so, so, so common, way more common than not. I think part of it is because of the lies, and I say they're lies, the lies we've bought into as entrepreneurs. You won't be profitable for 5 years. I always say, says who? Why? What
Mhm.
says who? Who made it? Who made that rule up? Why can't you be profitable from the beginning? In that second business I grew, I'm like, I am bound and determined that this will make profit from day one. Like I'm going to run it like a business and not play store with my store. And so when I went in with that mindset, it was amazing what I could accomplish. Versus if I would have went in and said, well, this isn't going to be profitable for 5 years. That's what they say. Of course, I'd make bad financial decisions and I wouldn't watch the bottom line because I would keep giving myself that excuse. The same thing with paying myself. We hear if you're the owner, you have to work for free. I mean, I remember at one point I was in the alley of our store. It was an old store. And so we had all these concrete steps that went up. I was wearing high heels. It was like 90 degrees out by myself, unloading a pallet. I mean, it was miserable, hard work. I'm clomping up and down in these high heels, unloading box. And I thought, this is ridiculous. I'm doing this for free while I pay 12 people to do all these other jobs. Their paycheck always cashes. What am I thinking? Like, what is the point of this? Unfortunately, I had that thought and then kept doing it for the next, maybe 6, 7 years. So, um, but we just think, well, I would always tell myself, one day my payday will come. I'm going to invest. I'm going to hire this next person. Now I'm going to hire a director of ops because they're going to help me do X, Y, Z. And this is all going to get me a payday one day. Like I'm building this 7-figure business. One day I'll get my payday. The problem with what happened was it never came. And in the end, they all got paid for multiple years. I even had like a 401k set up I mean, it was ridiculous. Vacation pay, all the stuff. And I ended up losing everything and never having gotten a paycheck. So it's a very expensive education in how to do things right. But I think when we buy into that lie, it's like giving ourselves a parachute from the beginning. And if you give yourself a parachute or you give yourself an out, you're always going to take it. So instead, if you say, okay, this is non-negotiable, I work harder and always will than anyone else in my business. I have more value and more intelligence in my brain on how this business should run than anyone ever else can as a founder. And I need to be compensated for that. Now, most times, our compensation is not going to equal the value we bring, right? Because it takes time for that to grow. But when you start, and I help my clients start like this. So if you start saying, okay, maybe it's $50 a week, but it's every Friday, like everyone else. I'm consistent, I make it happen, and then I bump it up to 100, and now I'm at 500. So you set a goal, you get consistent with it, and you build your business metrics around that. Just like you're not going to skip rent, you're not going to skip your paycheck. And it's funny how we can always find money for everything else and that always cashes, but there's never enough money to pay me. Well, there is if you plan for it. And the other thing I would say about that too is when we go in with this mindset of like, I'll just work for free, my paycheck will come, we're not going to do the necessary steps to be smart with our balance sheet, our profit and loss, our budgets, if we're not budgeted in. So we have to put our name on that payroll, right? Because then we are very good at figuring out how to solve that problem and make sure that we have enough to cover ourselves too.
Yeah, I think that's so smart. I know in my business I did that from kind of like day one. The first time like
Yeah.
someone paid me, I paid myself. I don't know like you do it in like your business, but I had heard a lot about profit first and I was just
Yeah.
like this is smart. I am taking a certain percentage from every dollar my business earns and I'm putting it into an account for myself. And especially early on in the business, was I making a fair wage? Hell no. Like, it wasn't
But
happening.
you were
Like,
being consistent and putting
yep.
putting value behind your work.
Yeah, but I was paying myself and like
Yeah.
and it really also now once again like I'm service based so I know like once you're product based you have to factor in the cost of inventory and a cost of possibly that retail space and things like that some of those costs that a service based business doesn't have, but it also made me kind of smart of some of my pricing and some of my investments and some of like other things where I said okay, like if I'm going to charge X amount for this service, how much am I walking away with? And if
Yeah.
I am the person performing this service, is that worth my time? So, or if like I'm going to go do a speaking engagement and they're going to pay me, is that worth my time based off of what I will pay myself, not what my business will earn, but what I will personally earn to go and spend the time to do that. And
Yeah.
thinking about stuff like that for speaking engagements, like, yes, I might end up getting other clients. Okay, how big is the audience? What percentage of people do I think will actually purchase something from you? What will that be? Is it worth my time? And it's allowed me to say yes to certain things. It's allowed me to say no to certain things, reevaluate things, increase my pricing to where I probably should be once I actually look at everything. But yes, like my pay is always a factor in everything.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so important. And if you don't think of it that way, it never will be. So,
Hmm. Yeah. So what about the concept of not paying yourself or taking like a break from paying yourself because you need to make an investment, because you need to hire that director of operations and you're or you hope or you're planning out where you're going to get that profitability from it that you hire that person your revenue is going to go it's going to increase or for our inventory people our retail people you're going to invest to open that second location and that costs money. Some of it you might be able to get loans or things for that capital to do it, but some of it you might come out of the money you have in your business right now. So what is your opinion about taking those small cuts for yourself because something you temporarily or should be temporarily it's needed elsewhere in your business?
yeah, I mean, I think a couple things with that. First, if you're taking a cut, are you really looking at it strategically? Like, are you actually putting the numbers together in a way that you should? And do you really need to take that cut? And if you do need to take that cut, what's the return on investment on that? So one thing I work with my clients on is that we want to find a return on investment in everything we do, not just in our marketing. We need an ROI on our people. We need an ROI on our time. And so if you're taking a paycheck cut, maybe you're taking $2,000 a month cut, what is the return on that $2,000 investment that you're making into the business, right? So now I'm giving you $2,000, my business, $2,000 worth of my time. I expect a return on that investment. We have to start looking at our businesses that way. I think that's really important. And the second piece with it is businesses run so fat. And I remember when, as I was winding things down and everything was like, I was losing things and I was trying to like just throw everything over the ship to stay afloat, right? Like this desperation, which we see a lot. How can I get rid of more people, more people, more people? I remember standing in the back of my warehouse. It was me and two of my main team members left. That's it. So three of us full time. And I was like, well, this is really interesting. Three of us are doing the work that it took 12 of us to do. Did I really need a marketing person, two buyers, an operations person, all this stuff I had convinced a warehouse manager and a warehouse assistant? Did I need all of those people that I had convinced myself that I needed? Probably not. Because now, when I was forced to run efficiently, I was finding that I could do a lot of work with three people, and I had been paying for 12 people. And so I would just challenge people to really think about, do you really need that hire? Because that is a vanity metric for entrepreneurs too. And this might be, people might be like, whoa, this Ciara lady, she's kind of mean. But you are working for free. You're probably in debt. You're for sure not getting what you wanted to get out of your business, right? You've left a C-suite job or whatever, your earning potential to run this business. And yet you're running it so fat instead of running it lean and mean and like really thinking about how to be most efficient, who do I actually need to hire? And what is their actual job role? Which I know you're so good at helping people with that. Like, what's the actual job description? Not, oh, I need another store manager. And now I need an operations person because that sounds cool. And I can tell people I have a marketing lead. Can my operations person actually do these other jobs as well? Like, am I being super smart? And so when I work with people and we're in financial distress, that's one of the things that we go through an audit. Like, let's look at your team because
Right.
chances are you're way overpaying all of these people. You're not holding them accountable. They're not doing a great job for you, probably because they don't even know what you want them to do. They're not the right
Right.
people in the right seats. And so our payroll's crazy. And if we're sinking, like we got to get rid of some payroll. And it's really interesting how when we're forced into that, we can get a lot more efficient.
Yeah. So a question I have about that, because I think a lot of people's minds go from you went from 12 people to 3 people and they are doing the work. Well, are you just overworking those 3 people where now they're doing the jobs of 12 people? Or was it more so you realized that there were inefficiencies going on? There was things that were like tasks that were being done that didn't need to be done that you could eliminate from your business. Like how did that happen? Because I think like let's get out of the mindset of people being like, especially the business owners that probably already feel overworked and they're like, if I get rid of team members, does that just mean more work for me?
Yeah. So I'll say something that'll probably be pretty controversial too. And I'm saying this all with love because you guys, I have done all of these things. So this is not someone that's like, oh, I took an online course and now I'm a coach. No, I lost it all. And I've won a lot too. Like I've done
Yeah.
really, really well as well. And I help so many people. So I see the back end of all these businesses. Efficiency is one of the biggest reasons that people are overworked and out of time. Like I find that time management and financial management go hand in hand. If your finances are out of order, most likely your time is out of order and it's a disaster too. And so I will say that going from 12 to 3, we were also like there were other things that were shrinking, right? So we didn't have the same amount of stores. But I could have easily gone from 12 to 6. And it's because there wasn't efficiencies. People were wasting time talking. People weren't coming to work when they needed to come to work. People were saying, well, that's not in my job description, passing off the buck, 2 people doing the same job, like just so many inefficiencies. And I think that's what happens, right? So, and especially when money starts coming in. So when money starts coming in, our sales are growing, there's lots of cash. That doesn't mean that we're keeping it, but we feel like, okay, there's money, I can hire, I can do all these things. Stuff gets super inefficient. And if the foundation isn't built right, it's suddenly like all of these inefficiencies. And that's what I was finding. Like it didn't take, I shouldn't have had like 3 marketing people and all of this stuff that I had on my team. I had 3 buyers on my team. One buyer, if they were super efficient, could have done that with someone over the top, the director of ops, like managing, checking off, right? So I think it's the efficiencies. And then I think with the owner, and this is the unpopular opinion, if you're feeling like you're constantly overworked, I would love to just challenge you on what does your day look like? Like I have people do a time audit. So I'll say this is going to be so annoying. It's literally like food journaling every day from Monday to Friday. You're going to sit down and you're going to punch in and out on a piece of paper. 9:01 to 9:15 emails, 9:15 to 9:45 answering DM. And I want you to write that down because I want you to look at how much you're bouncing all over the place. So on a Monday, you might be emailing. Now you're checking this. Now you're creating a Canva graphic. Now you're on the phone. Now you're working with people behind. That is not efficient and you will feel overworked. And so if you can get really good at understanding and managing your time first and then hire for what you actually need instead of just I'm overworked, I need more people, I'm going to hire another manager, that just creates more inefficiency because now you're babysitting them and they're not being efficient. Do you know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
just like this repetitive disease
Yeah.
in the business.
Yeah, like there's so much in there that you're so spot on, Ciara. Like first off, the efficiency, like that's like one of the things. Like back when I was in corporate, I actually have like my Lean Six Sigma like black belt certification, and it was all about finding efficiencies, cutting out the waste and things like that, where we are
Yeah.
able to um, eliminate positions because of the fact that we started doing things smarter and better. And sometimes it was just those things. It's like where are we spending our time, and how do we manage our time better? And sometimes when it came to like what would work best for time management, different things worked for different people. But once we were able to really focusing on it, or I remember one of my team members, one of her biggest struggles was the sales team that she worked with called her nonstop. And if they couldn't get in touch with her, they'd call her again and email her again, and having to talk to that sales team to be like, you can call and leave a message. She will get back to you within these times. If it is
Yeah.
urgent, here's what you're going to do so she knows it's urgent. There's like a fire that needs to be put out, so she picks up the phone and things like that. So we figured out, what works for each team member. And I will say, because I worked for a large corporate organization, sometimes when we were eliminating positions, there were other things in the organization that person could do, and maybe we just wouldn't hire for an opening that was out there. So no one got fired from the process improvements and everything that we were doing there. But in your business, that might look different. You might have to let people go because you're improving things. You're getting things done quicker and better and more efficient. Also,
and I
like
would say too, like just the babysit, like stuff can eat up our time. Just like scrolling on Instagram can take so much of our time. So can talking around the counter about the one employee who always chews gum and you've told her a million times and you don't like it and the way she, like, how much time are you spending complaining about the problems that if you just solved them, that would give you 30 minutes back every
right,
single day, right? Like dealing with things head on, being efficient, being kind because you hold people accountable instead of being unkind by telling everyone how what a poor job they're doing, but never telling them. I mean, you see
right.
all of that with people stuff, right? And so that's what I was seeing when I was standing in the back room. I'm like, how much time was wasted over the drama that I allowed to continue and inefficiencies and people telling me they didn't want to do certain things. And at one point, I asked her to do something and she said, I respectfully decline. Like she told me that. I still want to use that phrase someday because I was like, that's kind of a funny phrase. But like she basically told me no. And I'm like, this is in your job description. She's like, I don't want to do it. And I would let that stuff go because I was like, well, I'll just have so and so do it instead. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, we tell ourselves, we buy into the lie that we don't have to pay ourselves so that we can excuse that kind of behavior because we don't want to deal with it. I mean, is
Right.
really
Well,
what it comes down to.
and sometimes I find that business owners are stuck with those team members that suck their time because they don't want to go through the hiring process again because they're like, it takes
Yeah.
time. And I'm like, but you have a team member that's sucking your time because they're not doing things right.
And
And
affecting everyone else on the team.
yeah, yeah. And you're thinking about that team member sometimes 24/7. You think about them
Yeah.
when you get home. You think about them when you wake up. You think about the conversations you're going to have. You think about the mistakes that you're going to have to clean up. And I'm just like, why are you struggling so much for a team member that's not worth their paycheck? Like,
Yeah.
we got to make
Meanwhile,
the
you're
smart
working for free.
decisions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you also brought up like something about team members just like not kind of doing what they're supposed to be doing and like kind of not being productive and not getting their jobs done. So it's kind of like they're sitting there and they're idled. And I remember having to have conversations with employees about that before. The corporate organization that I worked with, they did summer hours. So it's like you work extra Monday through Thursday, you get a half day on Friday. And they would want to continue that year round without working those extra hours Monday through Thursday. It'd be like, oh, it's Friday, it's 1 o'clock. We're all caught up on our work. Can we leave early? And sometimes like we would allow it, and other times like it, but it got to the point where I had to sit there and tell my team, I'm like, listen, you all want to cut out 4 hours early every Friday, but you're not making up the hours throughout the rest of the week. And they were in salary positions and stuff like that. I was like, but you always want to leave it early. So you're telling me that none of you have enough work to complete a full week of work every week, which so you're telling me we have too many people on the team.
Yeah.
And if you calculate, there's X amount of you, you leave 4 hours early every Friday. How many hours of that? Oh, look, that's one full-time position. That's 40 hours a week that we're losing. So I can
Yeah.
who can I eliminate? And they're like, no, 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 no. Like we got full workloads. I'm just like, but if you can leave early every Friday, do you really have a full workload? Like,
Yeah.
so sometimes it's like catching team members like, yeah, they're not doing their job that you're paying them for. And I think we have to recognize that we're paying people to do work. They need to be doing work. And if they're not doing that work, do you need that team member or that team member
Yeah.
that you currently have as a full-time team member? Does that position actually need to be a full-time position? I know I talk to employers about this all the time. It's like they think in order to get good quality candidates, it needs to be full-time. And I'm just like, no, 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 we can hire part-time. There's a lot of great people out there that
Yeah.
only want part-time jobs.
Right.
So don't think you need to pay for 40 hours a week if you only need 20.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I also love when you talked about just kind of like the monitoring your time. I think that also it shows you a lot of kind of like where you need to hire. I know when I first started doing that for myself and I was like, I'm not having I'm like, I'm the business owner and I don't have enough time to go into like the business owner activities. I don't have enough time to do the sales and marketing. Like, what is going on? And all of a sudden I looked at it and I was like, we do full service recruiting for some of our clients. And I was spending some weeks 20 to 30 hours in interviews. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, great, that needs to get done. But if I'm spending 20 to 30 hours in interviews and I have two little kids, so I only have 30 to 35 hours to work per week, like fully dedicated hours. I'm like, no wonder why I have no time for business owner tasks. So the next thing I did, I need to hire someone who can help with those interviews because that needs to be taken off my plate so I can put my time where I should be spending my time and
Yeah.
things like that. But then also looking at it, I had a marketing team member for a little while that I realized was not was not worth my time. Was not worth my money to have because what they were doing was not producing the ROI that was needed, but also they were doing stuff and then it was just sitting there and hold because then I wasn't doing the stuff with it afterwards. And I was like, but if I'm
Yeah.
not going to do the stuff with it, why am I paying for the work to get done?
Yep.
And so, you do have to reevaluate and sometimes you realize that you don't have the team you need and sometimes you have a team that is not actually serving you.
Yeah, exactly.
So all right. Well, let's start wrapping up for today. So, Ciara, tell everyone how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, so the best way I think would just be heading over to my website, ciarastockeland.com, or Instagram, Ciara Stockeland, or Inventory Genius. My books are on Amazon, Inventory Genius and Profit Genius. And if you don't have product, a lot of my principles, if not all of them, it's a math problem, right? And so working through our financials, paying ourselves, figuring out how to keep more cash and make more money. So Profit Genius is a great book. It really applies to all business types, whether you're service, inventory, or a combination. And those are on Amazon. So I'd love to invite people to take a peek at that.
Sounds good. We'll share all those links over in the show notes on growingyourteam.com. All right. My final question, Ciara, that I love to ask all my guests. We've all had leaders or managers that have stood out to us. Think of a leader or manager that has stood out to you and share something about them.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to bring in a story that's not a positive one because I think sometimes we can learn from the stories that are not feel good fuzzy. So I was working in a coffee shop when I was first married. I'm just part-time and I would do the early morning shift so I could get in at 4 a.m., work by myself a little bit, and then be done by noon. And the owner of the coffee shop was a horrible leader. She was a very nice person, but she was a very bad leader. And what she did that really stood out to me was her unorganization. So we were a coffee shop, we would make baked goods, and she'd always run out of inventory. I didn't think of it as inventory at the time, but it was inventory. And so she would send us to the local grocery store to buy things so much more. Like she made no money on it because she was always running out. And I remember thinking, this doesn't seem like a great way to run your business. And then her organization spilled into the way that she managed her team. And so she didn't like any confrontation. So I would show up and do the hard things. I'd get my work done. I'd keep the store clean. I was nice to customers. And there were a couple people on our team that were not great with customers. They never cleaned. They didn't do the things on the list that everyone else had to do. And instead of talking to them about it, she would make us split our tips. So in coffee, you don't make very much minimum wage. And then we have a tip jar. So while I'm being friendly with customers and doing all the things and going above and beyond, others would talk about customers behind their backs, they wouldn't serve them, and they would get to split the tips. And I remember having a conversation with her about how that just didn't seem right. And she said, well, I just don't want to upset anyone, so we're just going to keep it this way. And that always stood out to me because she was very nice, but she wasn't kind in the way that she led. And so as I've led people over the years, I've really tried to figure out how can I be fair with people? How can I set an expectation and hold everybody to the same standard? And how can I not frustrate my employees by staying organized, right? So that they're not having to run to the grocery store at 4 in the morning to get buns for that day. So that's someone that, when you asked that question, she came to mind right away.
Yes. Yeah. No, and I love those examples too, because like sometimes those people are what make the biggest impact on who we end up being as a leader or
Yeah.
manager. I remember at an internship in one of my early jobs, I had horrible female bosses. And I remember thinking in my head, if this is how you have to act to be a female business owner, I want nothing of it. And I almost kind of put my future dreams of running my own business on hold because of that. And then I was in corporate and had amazing female bosses that really showed me a lot of positivity around leadership and what great leadership looked like. And you didn't have to act like these other women in order to be successful and things like that. And I just remember thinking in my head, well, I don't have to be like them. So I'm going to use that as an example of what to avoid instead of an example of what to be like.
Yeah.
And it really shaped me a lot. One of the other things that you said there that I just want to talk about before we wrap up is you talked about how she didn't want to upset anyone, so she refused to have the conversation and just made you split your tips. But isn't it funny? We don't want to upset the team members that are doing things wrong. So instead, we actually upset the team members that are doing things right.
Yeah. And what we end up doing is losing the A+ players, because when I had an opportunity to move on, I took it. I was like, I'm not going to stay somewhere where I work harder than anyone else and care about the customer, but I'm not rewarded for that. While people show up late and show up hungover and all these things, and they're rewarded in the same way that I am. And so, in not wanting to upset our A+ player, we're willing to upset those people, but not the people that, won't rise to the occasion. We end up losing our good people in the long run.
Yeah. You have to think about, like, who are you upsetting because you don't take action, because you don't address the issue? And it could be another team member. It could be your customers and clients. So sometimes we have to have the tough conversations when they are needed in our business.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, thank you, Ciara. There was so much great information here today in this episode. Oh, I'm so excited. I want to go back and re-listen to it and everything and get copies of your books. But thank you so much for joining us today on the Growing Your Team podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Are you ready to hire a new team member for your business, and you want to ensure you hire the person who can succeed in the role, make you happy, and positively impact your bottom line? Then let's talk and see how growing your team can help you master the art of hiring. Through bespoke hiring frameworks and comprehensive guidance, you will learn how to attract candidates who have the passion you desire and the skills needed to succeed. At Growing Your Team, women entrepreneurs and leaders work with us to help them expand their unique businesses by teaching them how to hire like a pro. Let's connect and see how we can help you. Send me an email at jamie@growingyourteam.com. That's Jamie, JAMIE @growingyourteam.com, or head on over to growingyourteam.com/jumpstart, with jumpstart being all one word, and let's talk about how you can become a confident leader who hires right every single time.